Back. Email your comments to wdev@radiovermont.com.
The energy.
The guy told me I was no spring chicken anymore, and that's why my ankle was still hurting. I'm 33, not 133.
The passion.
The Red Sox handling of Xander Bogaerts is a complete organizational failure.
The opinions on all your favorite teams.
No, not this year, but it's next year where Bill Belichick ends up on the hot seat.
This is the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
What is up, everybody? Brady Farkas Show here on a Wednesday on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. Yeah, I got to tell you, this is exhausting today. This show today, I have no idea what's going to happen over the next hour and 15 minutes. We're on until 6:45, and then it's high school basketball. I have no idea what's going to happen. We might have 2 guests. We might have 3 guests. People might be moving different time slots. The only thing I know for sure is that Bill Currier is joining us at about 6:25. Bill Currier is the former UVM baseball coach, the last baseball coach in the history of the UVM program. He's going to be with us about 6:25. He's still coaching college baseball at Fairfield University in Connecticut, and they're really, really good, and their season starts soon. So Bill Currier is going to have some fun with us at the end of the show. That much I know. Tom Caron is supposed to come on with us at 5:45. I'm also working on Ryen Russillo. Right? Ryen Russillo, UVM grad, former ESPN radio host. Now he works over at The Ringer, one of the biggest and best names in sports media. I'm working on Russillo. He's texting me like as we go through the show. He's like, yeah, maybe 5:45, maybe 6:05. Not quite sure yet. Checking into the hotel. I think he's in Phoenix. So I have no idea when Russillo is going to join us. And if Russillo has to join us at 5:45, then I got to try to get in touch with TC and move him to 6:05. So I have no idea what's going to happen and when. Right? We could have Russillo at 5:45 and TC at 6:05. We could have Russillo at 5:45 and TC says, I can't do it later. We could have both of them. I have no idea what's going to happen. Could be 2 guests, could be 3 guests. It is Super Bowl week. This is what happens on Super Bowl week. We just kind of fly by the seat of our pants. You can get in on the Napa Morrisville, Napa Waterbury text line, 802-585-3026. That is the Napa Morrisville, Napa Waterbury text line. You can watch the show on Facebook Live. You can watch it on YouTube Live and on my Twitter account as well. Let's get the chaos started.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And here we go.
The opening thoughts on the Brady Farkas Show were brought to you by Sticks and Stuff and by Swanton Lumber, Vermont's most complete locally owned home center with locations in Enosburg, Derby, Middlesex, St. Albans, and at Swanton Lumber. They're online at sticksandstuff.com. So last night it happened just before midnight. LeBron James broke the all-time scoring record in the NBA. The most points, regular season points in NBA history, surpassing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Here come the Lakers with 25 seconds remaining in the quarter. Westbrook's got it just inside half court. Westbrook with it. Give it to LeBron at the right elbow. LeBron, one-on-one against Kenrick Williams. Backing him in. Turns, shoots, scores! There it is! All hail the new king in town! Young and old, gather round from one iconic Laker to another. The king, LeBron James, has passed the captain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Last night, watching that was fascinating sports theater. The broadcast was saying all night it felt like a playoff game. I don't think that really felt like a playoff game. That seemed different than a playoff game to me. The anticipation every time that LeBron got the ball, the disappointment that every time someone other than LeBron took a shot. I mean, in a playoff game, at least the fans are pulling in one direction. In this game, the fans were not pulling in the Lakers direction. Everybody was pulling in the LeBron direction. Westbrook takes a shot, nobody's happy. Anthony Davis takes a shot, nobody's happy. They just wanted to see LeBron shoot. It was an odd but fascinating dynamic. And I've also got to say, for one night, it was just nice to have people coming together. We don't get that enough anymore. Not everyone likes LeBron. I get it. He does some cringeworthy things. He's into self-promotion too much in a way that Michael wasn't. His social media is weird. Some of you don't like that he speaks on race or on politics. Not everyone likes that. But for one night, last night, all of that seemed to go away. And we could just focus on basketball, and we could just focus on the coolness of an amazing accomplishment. That record had stood for 38 years. And we got a chance to see history. That's pretty darn cool. And it seemed like last night, almost everybody appreciated it. Look, take all the ancillary stuff about LeBron out of the picture. The self-promotion, the social media, the political stances, the decision, all of that. Take all that outside. And just please recognize how amazing what LeBron James has done actually is. Please, for one day, appreciate how cool what LeBron has done and how cool it actually is. I mean, I get it. The game has changed. Athletes have changed and all that. But LeBron is 38 years old, and he still looks like the most physically dominant athlete on the court every time he takes it. At 38 years old, LeBron James looks like the most physically imposing presence on the court every time he takes it. When you get to be 38 years old, the goal is what? That you don't suck, right? That you don't embarrass yourself. Not only does LeBron James not suck, he's averaging 30 points per game. He looks like a semi-truck coming at you down the lane. I can't even fathom what I'm watching right now. Right? I hear the jokes as I get older, people saying, I'm mid-30s, man. I get out of bed and everything hurts. LeBron James is out getting 30 a game on dudes half his age, and he is the most physically imposing person on the floor. We see what Tom Brady did. We see what Aaron Rodgers has done. We see what LeBron is doing. Unheard of ages, unheard of levels of performance. This is amazing. And if you don't want to like LeBron, that's your prerogative. But what he's doing is amazing. 38 years old, 30 points a game, best athlete on the floor, or at least best physical specimen on the floor, I should say. He may not jump the highest anymore. He may not run the fastest anymore, but most physically imposing presence on the floor every night. That is pretty darn amazing. And I have a question for you. And I want to make this very clear. I have absolutely no time and no desire for the GOAT debate. I do not do Jordan versus LeBron. I don't do two things in this business, Jordan versus LeBron and should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame. I don't do either of those debates. Those are low-hanging fruit. I want no part of that. So I'm not here today to talk about LeBron versus Jordan. I do have this question for you. 802-585-3026. Which story arc do you consider more impressive? Tom Brady or LeBron James? That's the debate I'm interested in having, because that's the question I actually think is interesting. Which career arc do you consider to be more interesting, to be more impressive? Tom Brady, who's the ultimate underdog story, right? Couldn't even start all 4 years at Michigan. 6th round pick number 199, plucked from obscurity, comes back, has 2 to 3 separate Hall of Fame careers, wins 7 Super Bowls, does it in 2 separate organizations, wins one in his 20s, wins it in his 30s, wins it in his 40s. Is Tom Brady's out of nowhere arc more impressive? Or is LeBron James's arc more impressive? Where LeBron James had all the expectations. right? Tom Brady had no expectations and defied them all. LeBron James had all the expectations, hit them, and exceeded them. Which one's more impressive to you? LeBron's on the cover of Sports Illustrated at 16 years old. His high school games are on national television. He's got immediate scrutiny from the time he's 16 years old. He gets drafted number 1, gets drafted by his hometown team, revitalizes a fan base, carries the league, wins titles with 3 separate organizations, multiple gold medals, wins in the bubble, and now is the all-time leading scorer in the league. Which one's more impressive to you? Out of nowhere or has expectations and hits them all? I got to say, I think it's LeBron. And it's not a runaway. It's not a blowout. But I think the LeBron James story is more impressive than the Tom Brady story. Yeah, we knew that LeBron would be good, right? He was supposed to be good. LeBron was supposed to be good. We knew he was going to be good. We didn't know he was going to be this good. When you have the bar and all the pressure on you and you hit it, that's pretty something special to me. Again, not a blowout over Tom Brady, but I think the LeBron story is better. I mean, he could have easily crumbled under expectations. We've seen that many times. He could have easily fallen into trouble off the court. Didn't. LeBron gets drafted number 1, wins a title with his hometown team eventually, wins it with 3 separate organizations, gold medalist, leading scorer, great passer. I mean, he's done everything there is to do. He has done everything that there is to do, and it's better than we expected it to be. I asked Freddie Coleman this question earlier today. Freddie's online on our podcast channel. He thinks LeBron's more impressive than Brady.
But I'm going to gravitate to the side of LeBron James because I had this discussion last night with Ryan Windhorst, Tim Bontemps, and Tim McMahon, who do a great job covering the NBA, and they do a great job of the Hoop Collective podcast. And I said, we knew or had a feeling that LeBron James was going to be great. Nobody saw it this great. And I look at any great athlete that's ever happened, Brady, in any sport. It doesn't matter if it's basketball, football, golf, etc. We expect somebody that will have those expectations of being great, but then it can go far beyond that.
And this went far beyond that. And this is a polarizing issue. Gary says, tough call. LeBron went to the NBA right from high school and dominated. Whereas Joe says Tom Brady hands down. He didn't leave his teams to go ring chasing. He did it with nothing. He's the ultimate underdog story. All right, easy on that. Now, Tom Brady had the greatest coach in NFL history. He had a patently easy division, right? But the question is about what's more impressive, underdog story or guy with the expectations who hits them. I'm saying it's the other. I'm saying it's LeBron's. Tex says, I'm not impressed with LeBron. He played 20 plus years. Of course, he's going to score a bunch of points. Did his team win last night? He's got 4 titles. He's got 4 finals MVPs. He's won titles with 3 separate organizations. He's won multiple gold medals. He's been an NBA scoring champ. He's a 19-time All-Star. I believe he's an 18-time All-NBA selection. So let's not act like LeBron is just good because he's played for a long time. Tom Brady's got the most passing yards in NFL history too. Why? He's played for a long time. So I'm less impressed with the overall point total for LeBron than I am the overall story arc. You know what? I finally got some clarity as to what's going to happen on this show. We're going to ask a guy who knows basketball way better than me, Ryen Russillo of The Ringer. He's going to join us next. TC, he's going to come on just after 6 o'clock. I'm getting text messages as we talk on the air here. Ryen Russillo is going to be with us next here on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM and FM.
In 6 decades, a lot has been said about Gillespie Fuels and Propane. Here's just a sampling.
What makes Gillespie Fuels different, aside from being a family business? They're going to make things right and do whatever it takes. Caron and her team, they certainly go to great lengths to make sure that their customers are taken care of.
The best service and a great price on propane. guys are there at a moment's notice and get the job done quickly and get you back running.
The pricing is solid and the service is unbeatable.
Their prices are very competitive, and the promptness on service is why I stick with them.
I would say the word that represents them is integrity. They do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it.
With offices in Northfield, Randolph, and Waitsfield, delivery and service requests are handled 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right here in Vermont by people who know the temperature and where you live. Gillespie Fuels and Propane, 60 years of Vermonters serving Vermonters, 485-3766.
Do you know what people see when they Google you? Search engines don't always get it right. And when they're wrong, it's your reputation on the line. So what do you do when you don't agree with your search results? Call Reputation Defender at 800-401-6681. Reputation Defender by Norton is one of the most trusted names in online reputation repair. We have over a decade of experience in fixing people's search results, and we can help you too. Using cutting-edge approaches, Reputation Defender pushes unflattering information down to lower pages of your search results, where few people ever look. We also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, letting you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. You owe it to yourself to take control with Reputation Defender. Visit www.reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 for free advice on your situation. 800-401-6681. That's 800-401-6681.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show, right here on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. Tom Caron, Red Sox and Bruins insider at Nesson, usually with us at this time on a Wednesday. TC going to join us in the 6 o'clock hour, though, about 6:05. And joining us now here as we kind of continue our Radio Row at home version of the show this week is our friend Ryen Russillo, UVM graduate, former ESPN radio host, the Ringer personality now, host of the Ryen Russillo Show, and one of the more accomplished people in sports media. Ryen, thank you for being with us. How are you?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me on. How are you doing?
I'm doing well as well. Help us continue the conversation we were just having. I am so uninterested in the LeBron versus Jordan debate, but I am interested in this. What story arc do you consider more impressive? The out-of-nowhere underdog story that is Tom Brady, or the has all the expectations, hits them, and exceeds them LeBron James?
Well, I mean, that's a good one. You know, like, they're different sports in the sense that I always think it's kind of funny, like the pride football people have about football, as opposed to there's just a lot of basketball people that argue the same stuff. You know, and granted, I know what the ratings are and all that stuff, but there's also, you know, part of the ratings is because it's the exclusivity of the product. You know, there's not 82 of these games and on one day every day. So anyway, the point is like there's no version of event where the 199th player pick would end up being the best player of all time in basketball. Like it just wouldn't happen. But that's quarterbacking. Half the first round picks are busts. It gets even worse after that. Basketball drafts its stars far better than football does. And I don't know if it's because one group is better than the other. It's just kind of what the sport is. So when you think about LeBron and the size, the vision, like all of this stuff, like when he won his first title, I think it was the first one where he's like, I'm not even supposed to be here. And we're like, I don't know, dude. You kind of look like you belong out there. Pretty good chance if you put the time in with your physical gifts and size that you're probably going to be pretty good at basketball. So that part, you know, makes it sound like I'm diminishing, you know, again, one of the most accomplished players. And by the time it's over, maybe the most accomplished player of all time. Whereas Brady, you know, it's just, you want to talk about somebody who's not supposed to be here. You go that late in the draft. People didn't like him coming out. The physical gifts really weren't there. Oddly, he just became a stronger and more. He became like three different quarterbacks over the course of his career.
Yeah.
I mean, that first playoff run, he only had one touchdown pass in those 3 games. The Oakland game, he got hurt against Pittsburgh, and then in the Super Bowl, he had one. So it wasn't like he was lighting it up. As your listeners know, you go back 20 years, he was a game manager, and then he became somebody who could like hang with Peyton Manning statistically if he wanted to. So I probably lean towards Brady being the more, you know, Disney kind of story where this guy comes out of nowhere and does what he does, but it's not to diminish. Well, I think we're talking about two athletes that are the best bets in team sports over the course of their careers, which is 20 years.
Celtics are going to take on the Sixers tonight, continuing the NBA conversation, and they're doing that with the best record in the NBA. That said, the trade deadline is tomorrow. We've heard the rumors about them shopping maybe Danilo Gallinari and Peyton Pritchard, et cetera. They probably can't get a lot for that package, but what are you hearing about the Celtics? What do you think they need, if anything?
I think everybody wants wings and they want shooting. So if somebody like Jared Vanderbilt, Utah, is kind of in limbo there, who was part of the whole Currier package, who I really like that's the kind of player a lot of people would love to have. I don't think they'd be able to outbid anybody for him because the Celtics, the big problem that they have is that, the players that play in their regular 8-man rotation are all really good. The Derek White trade has been terrific, and that pushes somebody like Peyton Pritchard down. The Gallinari thing was probably a bit too much health risk combined with the Brogdon health risk, but if Brogdon stays healthy, that price is either going to be way too much or not even close enough because of his track record with his health. So they have a really good team. They have a really deep team. Maybe they're the best in the league. It feels that way at times. But when you start trying to figure out how you're going to outbid other teams with Peyton Pritchard and an injured Danilo Gallinari, which is basically a salary filler, then it comes down to what kind of price they want to pay in picks. And what I like about what Brad Stevens does, if they've got the pick wrong, they're like, you know what, we'll use a first if we're good, a first that might be in the 20s for somebody like Derek White. Granted, there's a swap coming later on, so who knows what that'll end up being. I think the league has started just giving these firsts away. I used to think they were kind of overrated. Now it almost feels like they're underrated because the return rate on them actually still isn't that good. It just sounds cool when you add first. So if they're going to be in a competitive market for a wing, or we've heard them connected to Jakob Poeltl forever. I think Andre Drummond would be in play. I'm sure Chicago would find a way, but I don't think Pritchard does enough for you to add a rotation player to a team that probably has one of the strongest. Well, it doesn't probably has one of the strongest 1 through 8, 1 through 9 in the NBA. So their problems are much better problems than some of these other contenders. They're just trying to add to an already really good group. I just don't know if they can go deep enough into the draft pick stuff and outbid other teams because it feels like there's just so many buyers right now, not as many sellers.
The Peyton Pritchard story is fascinating to me because I'm always interested in what motivates players, particularly young players. And Pritchard's on the record, and he said it recently to the Boston Globe, that he wants to play and he wants to play more. So on one hand, I get it. Hey, go get yours and put up stats and make money or whatever. On the other hand, it's like, you're on the best team in the NBA right now. That sounds a little selfish. What do you make when you hear guys on good teams that aren't happy with their role? We heard this from Terry Rozier a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think you're going to have a little bit of a standing for me to hear about it all that much. I like Peyton. I think he's had kind of a tough run of it because Ime completely banished him in the beginning. And then it was like, hey, you know what? We got this guy here who's actually pretty good, really good shooter, can handle a little bit more than you think. And then it was like, oh, yeah, he's actually pretty good. And then, you bring in Brogdon after you brought in White, and you're like, okay, where are my minutes? It felt like Hauser was getting his minutes in for a stretch because Hauser actually holds up better defensively. And the other problem is that usually the Celtics have something you don't really want to attack on defense. Unless you get Rob Williams in the switch, he's brutal with help. Horford's not necessarily somebody that, you can just get by. The wings are really good. Smart holds up. So when Pritchard's out there with some of those other guys, I think it can get a little worse because he's getting attacked because there's such a drop-off. Not that he's atrocious. It's just that he's the weakest link of all those people out there. So I totally get it. He's worried, like every guy that gets drafted and looks like he's going to play for a while. They're really worried about that second contract. But, I wouldn't – none of this is surprising. It just – if you keep hearing it too much from somebody who's the 9th or 10th guy, that's when it can become a problem. I'm not saying that's what it is yet, but, it's just my personal preference at some point. Be like, hey, this team's shooting for a championship. They're not worried about where the extension is going to be right now. It makes all the sense in the world. Like, the guy has kind of gone in and out of the rotation, and I don't think it's terrible. I think it's just a minutes crunch.
Ryen Russillo, the Ringer podcast host, the host of the Ryen Russillo Show, with us here on the Brady Farkas Show on DEV. We have, in addition to him just being the Celtics head coach, we have a affection for Joe Mazzulla. His brother Justin was a starter for UVM the last couple of years here. And how much credit should Joe Mazzulla be getting for Celtics success, or is it just as simple as you've got Tatum, Brown, and Horford, and you're really good without the coach?
Yeah, I think coaches can screw it up more than they can prop you up to a level that you couldn't get to without them. Like, I'm much like, people want to blame the coaches all the time. I just don't really like doing that. But for the same reason, I just think it's about the players.
Like, nobody wins championships in this league unless they have a couple of those special guys. And the Celtics have a couple of those special guys. I think what Russillo deserves a lot of credit for is that through all the, it's clear the players didn't want to lose Udoka. They were sort of, I think, private. I don't know if it was private or not. They were kind of letting you know a little bit, like, hey, we're a little annoyed by the situation, not being told what's going on, but that was the way that it was going to be handled, because I think that's the way it needed to be handled at that time. So the fact that they get off to this great start, they had a weird offensive dip there for what felt like 6 weeks, where all of a sudden nobody could make a shot in comparison to how well they were shooting in the first month of the season. But the whole collective of it, that they had this best record, that they feel like as good a bet as anybody to win a championship. I think he deserves a ton of credit, because there's no way you can do that job without getting through it that first year, realizing things you wish you had done differently. It's just anything that's important, you have to do it, and then you look back and go, okay, what would I have changed? He's doing that while also having this really good basketball team. So that part of it, I think he deserves a lot of credit for. As far as like specifically night to night, ooh, I didn't like that. It's like baseball managers. If you watch your team's season, if you watch 162, you're going to find a couple things that you don't like or wish you did differently. And I don't think any coach is immune to it. So overall, I think it's a great grade for him, because they just kept the ship here steady after what looked like a really controversial start to the season with the coaches.
UVM product Anthony Lamb has turned himself into a relatively nice rotation piece for the Golden State Warriors. Now, he hasn't played the last 3 games. He certainly cooled a little bit from his hot streak there in December and early January. But what do you make of Lamb's kind of NBA run and kind of, again, turning himself into a useful rotational player for a good team?
Yeah, that's the most amazing part about this, is that he has, at one point there, he had 3 lottery guys who couldn't get into the regular rotation, and Currier was going with him. At first, I kind of wondered, wait, are they doing this to mess with the other guys? And you kept watching the games, and you're just like, Lamb moves the ball. He's really smart. Like, all the stuff that he was really good in college, you're like, man, he can kind of do everything. You run the offense through him. And some of the mistakes you can make in the evaluation is that you'll look at him and go, okay, well, how many teams are going to let him go ahead and do these things? Well, the answer is not 0. No NBA team is going to go, let's have the offense run through Anthony Lamb. It's just not going to happen. The thing about him having all those responsibilities in college is that he knew kind of like, how do I become the best player to play alongside the better options? And that's what's huge credit to his basketball IQ, is that he very quickly realized, okay, what style of player do I need to be the person the other guys like playing with? And with Golden State, you have to keep moving. You play to the end of the shot clock. You have to be ready positionally, defensively. There's a huge amount of responsibility in young players that are in that Golden State rotation. And the funny thing is he figured that out and became more trusted quicker than the other guys with massive profiles. So, I don't think they're going to start punting on all these lottery guys that are only a couple years in the league, because Lamb has been so steady. But it wasn't anything other than just a real appreciation for him understanding what he was supposed to do and not trying to do the things he knew he wasn't supposed to do. And that's why I think a really established team liked playing with him so much. So it's a huge credit to him. It's a great evolution story in a very short amount of time. And I'm really blown away by the whole thing. I mean, we knew the guy could play, but he was kind of this odd fit. How good of an athlete is he going to be? What is he going to be allowed to do? Is he going to be able to adapt to it all? And he did it. He did it all in a really, there's plenty of teams that stink that he probably could have gotten buckets for, but he's doing it for a team that's still playing for something despite the frustration with their own injuries and their own record.
Ryen Russillo, UVM grad himself, and a host on the Ringers podcast channel. It's the Ryen Russillo Show. You can find it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You're traveling a bunch this week. I think you're probably in Phoenix right now for the Super Bowl. So assuming you are, enjoy the game. I'm sure you'll be out on Radio Row. Find the good food, and we'll catch up with you down the road.
All right. Thanks, Ted. Enjoy the game.
All right, I will do that. That's Ryen Russillo. A late ad here to the Brady Farkas Show. We're pumped to have him. Love having Ryen on. Nobody knows basketball that I know better than Ryen Russillo does. Good stuff there about Lamb if you're a UVM fan. Good stuff on Peyton Pritchard's attitude. I do think that is fascinating. Russillo's like, I don't like to hear it unless you're more established. A lot of stuff to get to and react to there. We got so many guests today in such a short show. I'm probably going to have to cut it up and talk about it more tomorrow, as the trade deadline for the NBA is tomorrow. And good stuff there on the kind of LeBron and Brady story arc. And Russillo's right. The Brady story is more of the Disney story, right? The underdog story, the come from behind story. I'm with him on that. But I think the LeBron story just might be more impressive. Now, again, Russillo's right. LeBron looked the part, right? LeBron looked the part. Brady never looked the part, so it took him a lot of work. I give Russillo credit for that too. He's got me waffling a bit. I just think when you come in with a ton of pressure and you hit every benchmark and you exceed every benchmark, there's something special about that. CBS News, and then Tom Caron is going to join us next here on Radio Row at Home. Brady Farkas Show on DEV.
96.1 WDEV FM Warren, 96.5 W243 AT Barrie, 98.3 W252 CU Montpelier, AM 550 WDEV Waterbury.
This is CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting.
I'm Monica Ricks in New York. Help keeps pouring in from all over the world as recovery operations continue in Turkey and Syria. CBS's Tina Kraus reports.
Rescue workers managed to save a father along with his young son and daughter from a collapsed building in northern Syria. Officials call the first 3 days after an earthquake the golden period, when the chances are greatest of finding survivors. But as this volunteer says, with each passing hour, the conditions become more difficult, with cold temperatures setting in and some being found dead.
More than 12,000 people have died. Authorities have given the all clear in Ohio, which means East Palestine residents can go back home. The area has been off limits for days after a train carrying toxic chemicals derailed. The man accused of killing 23 people at a Walmart in El Paso has pleaded guilty in federal court. Reporter Chris Fox.
24-year-old Patrick Crucius pled guilty to 90 federal charges, including 22 counts of hate crimes resulting in death. Shortly before the August 3rd, 2019 attack at an East El Paso Walmart, Crucius posted online that the shooting was in response to the Hispanic invasion of Texas.
The Pentagon says 4 previous Chinese spy balloons have flown over the U.S. Pentagon spokesman Brigadier General Patrick Ryder.
In some cases, whereas some of these balloons previously had not been identified, subsequent intelligence analysis did enable us to indicate that these were Chinese balloons.
The military is still recovering debris from this latest balloon. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made his first trip to Britain today since the start of the war with Russia. CBS's Ian Lee is in London.
Hundreds of lawmakers welcomed him to a packed Westminster Hall for a historic address. Russia will lose. While in London, President Zelensky also met with King Charles. He thanked the British monarch for showing support for Ukraine when he was still the Prince of Wales.
Well, we are just days away now from Super Bowl Sunday, and there's good news at the grocery store where at least one staple for the big game will be cheaper. Here's CBS's Matt Piper.
Overall food prices at the grocery store are about 12% higher compared to last year's Super Bowl season, but says Purdue University's Jason Lusk,
we're reaching some price levels we haven't seen in several years now.
Prices that are lower for a Super Bowl Sunday staple, chicken wings.
It's normally the case that around a Super Bowl season that chicken wing prices do increase. It appears that will be much lower than prices we've seen in the last couple of years.
Wholesale wing prices are $125 per pound this year compared to $266 last year.
Steak and avocados are also cheaper this year. Burgers are going to cost you about the same. This is CBS News.
Think you know sports better than Brady does? Text in with your thoughts at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Wow. Welcome back in. Brady Farkas Show here on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. This is the weirdness and wildness of Super Bowl week. I had been trying to get Russillo all week. He and I are going back and forth. We're ironing out times. I kind of thought it wasn't going to happen today. And then all of a sudden he hits me up at like 5:20. Hey, still got time? I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, maybe 5:45, maybe 6. Okay. So we get it ironed out, and, it's well worth it. But, I hate not knowing things. I hate not knowing the schedule of what I'm bringing you. But Russillo called in there. He was awesome. Good perspective on the Celtics, on Joe Mazzulla. C's will take on the Sixers tonight. I'm looking forward to that game as well. The LeBron and Brady story arc is still fascinating to me, as is the Peyton Pritchard story arc and his attitude. And I want to talk about it. We're going to have to do it tomorrow. TC is going to be here in just a couple of minutes. Bill Currier, the former UVM baseball coach, is going to be with us too at 6:25 or so. He's the last head coach in the history of the UVM program. He still coaches right now at Fairfield. I got to ask you, as we talk about LeBron and his accomplishments, and I think about Tom Brady and his accomplishments, did you hear what former NFL quarterback Trent Dilfer said yesterday? Dilfer, who won a Super Bowl with the Ravens, he's now the football coach at Alabama Birmingham. Did you hear what he said yesterday about kind of football players in the modern era?
Modern day game does not impress me. It's super easy when you don't get hit as a quarterback and when you can't reroute receivers and when you can't hit guys across the middle. I love Tom Brady. I love Ryen Russillo. I love these guys. It's not impressive.
Okay. 802-585-3026. Trent Dilfer says Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, what they have done does not impress him. Is this old man, get off my lawn, it was better in my day typical stuff? Or does Trent Dilfer have a point? That's what I ask you. 802-585-3026. You're not going to like my answer on this. I hate straddling the fence. I'm straddling the fence on this one. I think Trent Dilfer is both right and wrong in this one. Trent Dilfer is right in this sense. Most sports these days are easier to play and are easier to perform in and put up numbers. And that's true. He's right. He is not wrong about that. It sounds get off my lawn-ish. He's not wrong in that. Quarterback has more protection. Receivers have more protection. Defense can't do as much. There's a 17th game now, so there's more opportunity to pile up numbers, more opportunity to get games played. Better high school coaches, better college coaches, more 7-on-7 stuff, more exposure to the game. Guys play earlier. It's certainly easier to make a mark now in football at quarterback than it was back in the day. It's way easier to score in hockey than it used to be. It's way easier to score in basketball than it used to be. We have the three-point line now. There's a philosophical shift towards three-pointers. The schedule is easier on players now. Players have better recovery, less hand-checking, etc. So Trent Dilfer is right. Sports are easier today in a lot of ways than they used to be. But that said, Trent Dilfer is also wrong, and that the modern athlete also has disadvantages they have to overcome that the guys back in the day never had. The opponents are better than they've ever been before. The athletes now in every sport are genetically engineered to be great. Competition is higher than it's ever been. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wasn't playing against the guys LeBron's playing against. Okay, Gordie Howe wasn't playing against the guys that Gretzky was playing against. And Gretzky's not playing against the guys necessarily that Ovechkin's playing against. The athletes are in the social media age now. They're in the media age in general. So it's a different time. Some things are easier. Some things are harder. I asked Freddie Coleman to respond to Trent Dilfer's comments. He won't even go there.
It's impossible to compare eras to what quarterbacks are doing now to what quarterbacks did before, what wide receivers are doing now to what wide receivers were doing before. And that's why I stay out of that whole conversation. To say that it's easier for Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, I thought he was completely off base, because more than ever before, you have so many defense that can disguise things. You have defense bringing pressure, get the ball to your hands. You got man-to-man coverage concept that they do on the defensive side of things. You got to adjust the line protections at the line of scrimmage that quarterbacks a lot of times did not have to do in Trent Dilfer's day. So I didn't understand why he felt the need.
Interesting there by Freddie, too. He's right. The quarterbacks, maybe it is easier from a rules perspective, but they do have more responsibilities. It's interesting. It is a little get off my lawn-ish. I think Dilfer has a bit of a point, though. To say that Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers don't impress you, though, that is too far. They are impressive. Their longevity, their commitment, their training, their skill set, their minds, all of that is impressive. Yes, they get some breaks that other quarterbacks didn't, that Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, John Elway didn't get. That 100% true. But to say that what Brady does, Rodgers does is not impressive, I'm not buying that. There are some advantages that they have, other guys didn't. There is also some disadvantages as well. Tom Caron is joining us now here. He's with us every single Wednesday on the Brady Farkas Show. TC, I'm talking about these Trent Dilfer comments. Old man, get off my lawn, or does he have a point? You heard what he said.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. But the reason I discount that is that while the rules have changed and the games have all been adjusted to create more offense and whatever, I don't care what Trent Dilfer says. These guys are playing against athletes who continue to get bigger and stronger and faster every year, right? I mean, go back 20 years, then go back 40 years, then go back 60 years. The strides that have been made in strength training and the knowledge of the human body and the sports science, fine, the rules change. But guys 20 years ago didn't have the size and speed of defenders coming at them that they do now. So if you want to go with one, you better mention the other because these guys are doing it against freakishly talented athletes who have been engineered to do superhuman things.
Tom Caron, Sox and Bruins insider at NESN with us here on the Brady Farkas Show. Last week, I started to get into some spring training logistics and some questions I have. This year, what do we know about JetBlue Park and everything? The big hurricane last fall, was everything okay in Fort Myers in general?
No, but everything's okay at JetBlue Park. And so I've talked to a lot of people about that, and a lot of it we won't know till we get on the ground. And when we talk next week, I'll be there. But it's very, it's very point specific. It's you go 10 miles one way, you will see devastation. You go 10 miles the other way, everything is normal. There was some minor damage at the ballpark, mostly cosmetic, padding and lighting that was blown away and ripped up. That's all been repaired. Some of the damage was done after the fact. FEMA and some of the emergency crews use the area around JetBlue Park as a staging area because they have so much parking and whatnot. But it's all been repaired. I'm told that when you're at the ballpark, everything will seem normal. But again, go over to Fort Myers Beach and literally places that I've been going for 25 years, restaurants and bars and just sightseeing stops. I mean, they're gone. I mean, literally gone. That Fort Myers Beach was just wiped out. A lot of the places that are still there are still dealing with damage. Down Naples Way, there's a lot of damage. Bonita Springs, which is an area we spent a lot of time at, towards Naples. I've been told there's lots of devastation still there. So there's no doubt that's going to be a story hanging over that part of spring training this year. A lot of residences have been affected. I'm told it's tough. I booked my hotels months ago, but I'm told that can be tough right now because contractors have just set up there for months to get work done. I don't know the extent of the damage other than what I've been told, and I'm certainly going to find out when we get down there.
Any big spring training plans on NESN I should get excited about now? A couple of years ago, we had, I don't know, Red Sox players playing cornhole and all these kind of fun games. Then we had COVID and all that had to stop. Now that we're fully back again this year, what exactly are we doing on NESN coverage-wise?
Yeah, our shows begin next Monday. Jemai Webster will host the first couple of shows while I do the Bean Pot, and then I get down there and take over when pitchers and catchers work out on Wednesday. No games this year. In some ways, we talked a lot about that. The combination of the fact that there is still, damage and stuff down there. We want to be maybe a little more somber in our early coverage. The fact that there are a lot of players. Again, you could hate this team. You could say they've totally messed things up. But I want to get to know this team, and I think that's going to kind of be the theme of our early weeks, our coverage, is who are these guys? What does Justin Turner and Kenley Jansen expect to bring to this team? What does Casas' bigger role looks like? What is Rafael Devers, the leader, like? What can Verdugo? Who is Yoshida? I mean, there's a lot of who's the catcher? I mean, there's just a lot of question marks, more than usual around this team. So it's going to be a lot of get to know these guys, get to know the expectations, get to know the vibe. Workouts begin Wednesday, a week from today, for pitchers and catchers. And then 9 days later, 10 days later, you've got a game against Northeastern, and you get right up. I will say, I don't know what I'm supposed to give away. I actually don't know what we've announced yet, but we're doing a lot of games. We're doing as many spring training games as I remember in my over 20 years with the team. And the reason is there's a couple of reasons, I think. A, it's the whole get to know these guys, and I think spring training is a good place to do that. B, it's going to give the viewer and the broadcasters a chance to get to know the new rules. And I think that's the headline story. Like how, we got a lot of commercials and a lot of promos and a lot of things to get in. How do we do that when the guy's getting and throwing it in 15 seconds? How what's the pace of that? What's Jemai Webster going to do if we got no time to go down to him? So I think that's going to be really interesting. We've talked about this before, the World Baseball Classic games not using those rules. So those rules even more important when a guy like Kike Hernandez comes back or Kenley Jansen. Kenley Jansen is going to play for the Netherlands. He was one of the slowest pitchers in baseball last year. So one would think he really needs to work to those rules. But the Dutch World Baseball Classic team opens in Taiwan. If they win, I think they go to Tokyo for the next round. So and none of those games are going to be played with a pitch clock. So I think that's a significant story for one of the best closers in the game, coming to a new team with new rules, not getting much of a chance to work his way through that. So I'm really curious about the spring training, and I will tell you, we're going to do a lot of games. I'm getting to do some play-by-play. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, looking forward to that coverage at Nesson. Again, TC will be down there next week when we speak, but right now he's still from the comforts of the New England abodes and here on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV. Kike Hernandez, you mentioned, made some interesting waves yesterday. He was on the Chris Rose podcast through John Boy Media and said that he helped recruit Justin Turner to Boston, and we knew that, but part of the reason he wanted Justin Turner is because he thought the clubhouse needed kind of a makeover. And that's interesting to me because JD Martinez and Xander Bogaerts are kind of universally lauded for their leadership skills. So what exactly was wrong with last year's team that Kike thought they needed to change?
Yeah, and I think you got to separate those two. I don't think Bogaerts, everybody loves Bogaerts' leadership. I think Kike's point was probably that Bogaerts is gone. So what's the leadership now? JD Martinez is an interesting cat. I think he's a leader, but he's a leader in a very different way. He's a leader in he's a hitting savant. Again, the bag of tools he brings out onto the field. Nobody, when he first got here in Boston, I remember Mookie Betts just looking at him like, he throws a Frisbee and he's got Nerf things and he's got all these, and he videos every single swing he takes. That's well known by now, right? Even in the cage. There was a guy whose job was to make sure the iPad was on when he was swinging in batting practice, so that JD Martinez could take that video and send it back to his hitting guru on the West Coast, and they could talk about what he's doing right and what he's doing wrong. So, I don't know if TK's hinting towards that was a negative thing, but JD Martinez was a different guy. Matt Barnes was a leader in that bullpen, but had gone through a lot of struggles and adversity. So I think when you bring in a Justin Turner, this is a guy who was the heart and soul of that Dodgers dynasty for years. And it's just, again, Roberto Clemente Award winner last year. So one of the most respected leaders in the game. I think, guys like him, and I really do. I try to resist saying it because it sounds like I'm saying they're going to win the World Series, and I don't think they are. Okay. But what they're doing here reminds me so much of what I saw in the spring of 2013. Now, forget the lightning in the bottle they caught in October that year. Okay. But I've said this to you before, Napoli and Victorino and Johnny Gomes and Ryan Dempster were all older veterans on short-term deals, all of whom brought leadership skills from different organizations to the Red Sox and kind of rebooted the culture. I think you're going to get that out of Turner and Duvall and Jansen and some of these guys, even Kike Hernandez, who's back, but he signed a one-year deal. These are short-term veteran guys who are going to, and again, what it means on the field remains to be seen, but I can tell you what it means in the clubhouse is all of a sudden, this isn't just some young guys in Boston growing into their own. This is a group of guys who have won championships and been really important part of big franchises elsewhere who are now all coming back into one place to try to reboot this team.
Tom Caron, Red Sox Bruins insider over at Nesson. No Bruins hockey until the weekend. Come out of the All-Star break, and we haven't had hockey in forever. I kind of wish their bye week was in it.
Well, we had the Bean Pod on.
That's true.
Now, let's not, don't give me this. We haven't had hockey. It was a great event, as always. The Harvard BC first game, as always, out of control. Marek Hayduk looking like his father, Milan Hayduk, winning the game with 1.5 seconds left in overtime. Thank God, because we would have had the first ever shootout in Beanpot history, which is disgusting. And now, not that, I don't know if anybody cares in Vermont, but 70 years they have played the Beanpot. 70 years, same 4 teams since 1952. And for the first time ever, it's Harvard and Northeastern in the final. That's incredible to me. BU has been in 69 consecutive championships.
I'm not very good at math, but I bet the probability on that not have happening already would be very, very low. So,
right.
TC,
so enjoy. Good one. Monday. That's Monday at the Garden. The championship Tuesday. I'm out of here. We had stuff.
Well, we will talk to you from Fort Myers next week. Look forward to it. Enjoy the rest of the bean pot and safe travels. We'll talk in 7 days.
Thanks, Brady. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate it as well. A lot of good stuff there from TC as always. Just a couple of minutes left. Kike Hernandez says the Red Sox needed a culture change. I know TC seems to think it's not a big deal. It's not a shot at someone. Maybe it's not a shot, but it does feel like a big deal. When there's an acknowledgement that the clubhouse wasn't right last year, that piques my interest. I want to know why the clubhouse wasn't right last year. This team had veteran leaders. Nathan Eovaldi, Michael Wacha, Rich Hill were on that pitching staff. There should have been leadership there. The offense had Kike, Bogarts, Martinez, Christian Vasquez for more than half the season. It feels like the clubhouse shouldn't have been as disjointed or as bad as Kike kind of leads me to believe that it was. TC again says that's maybe not as big a deal as it sounds. I think it was a pretty big deal. When Kike Hernandez says, we need a culture change, I'm wondering, why was the culture bad? Now, this team does look like it will have good leadership. Turner, Jansen, they look like they'll be a big part of that. We'll see what happens. This team gets to spring training again next week. I want to update you on this UVM women's basketball, that big game against Maine right now. Both teams 8-2 inside America East play. UVM up 19-7 at the end of the first quarter. Catamounts up 19-7, 9 of 15 from the floor, 60% overall. Maine is just 3 of 15 at 20%. It's a big matchup, and right now it's going UVM's way. Catamounts looking to win 9 straight games inside conference play, and the men will take the floor tonight against Maine at 7. That comes up about 40 minutes from now. High school basketball on this station comes up about 25 minutes from now. Boys hoops, Lamoille and Montpelier. We're going to talk next with Bill Currier, the last baseball coach at the University of Vermont, the final one, and now the head coach at Fairfield University in Connecticut, Bill Currier. This will be a fun listen. He's a good guy. We'll do it next here on DEV.
Do you own land with a single or double wide home? Visit Fecto Homes, where they can guarantee you top dollar for your existing mobile home, regardless of the year. They offer many finance options with competitive rates and down payment assistance exclusively for mobile